Welcome to the Earth's Edge podcast. I'm your host, James McManus. At Earth's Edge, we run guided expeditions with a focus on environmental and cultural sustainability. We created this podcast to share stories from people who have found the outdoors and fallen in love with adventure. Each month, we're giving away one of our summit jackets worth €150. To be in the running, all you need to do is subscribe to our mailing list at earths-edge.com/podcast. There's a link in the show notes. Now, for today's guest.
It was the experience of being with a group of people and summiting the mountain and that feeling of accomplishment as a group. And that's been something I've been really used to over the years playing rugby, is that rugby's not an individual sport, it's a team sport, and we were certainly a team.
Today, I'm chatting with Stephen Ferris, the Ulster, Ireland and Lions rugby legend. Stevie talks about his climb up Kilimanjaro with us in January 2019 and how he thought it was one of the toughest things he's ever done. He was part of a team from the IRFU Charitable Trust who raised close to €200,000 for seriously injured rugby players. He talks about sharing a tent with the infamous Mike McCarthy and his newfound love for getting outdoors. We begin our chat discussing how he got talked into climbing Kilimanjaro, so let's get right in there.
It was actually Shane Byrne, I think, rang me up and he says, "Oh, you want to climb a mountain?" And I was like, "Not particularly, why?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, come on, we'll climb Kilimanjaro." And then I think within a few hours, you had actually been in contact. And I think it was very quickly, there was IRFU or IRUPA, Irish Rugby Players Union, that look after the lads now and do a lot of their off-field stuff. They were trying to do something for the charity. You had obviously got in the mix with Earth's Edge. And then Shane Byrne, who is a good pal of mine and obviously played rugby over the years. So yeah, before I'd actually even thought about it, James, I'd already said yes. So
awesome.
I just kind of rolled with it. And then I was like, do you know what? It's just for such a great cause. I've heard people saying it's really tough. I'll make up my own mind. And the only way to do that was to actually go and do it.
Like, I know obviously that the charity was very close to your own heart with your own history of injuries, but was Kilimanjaro something on your bucket list for a long time, or?
No, not in the slightest. I think I would go around the moorings quite a bit. Mark Robson, who is a commentator was with Sky for a long time, is now working with me on Premier Sports at the minute. He would run ultra marathons. He's been in the Swiss Alps. He's been in the Sahara Desert, 50 plus miles in grueling conditions. We would always go out in the mountains together and push each other a little bit, test each other in terms of where we're at physically, but it's also a mental side for me. So Mark would always say that he would get up in the morning and he would go to the Moor Mountains and he would set out at 7:30 and he would do a 3 or 4 or 5 hour loop, do a couple of summits and get back in the car. And he calls it a brainwash, where for me, it's the reset button, where everything negative that I've been kind of thinking about, anything that's been distracting, any anxiety or stress, I think about it massively on the car on the way there. And then when I get out on the mountains, I push myself hard and I just seem to get back into the car, and everything that I've thought about is nowhere near as big a problem as I thought it was. It's a great way to do that in the Moor Mountains and a few other mountains around Uri. And my brother-in-law, he lives over in Scotland, so he's always around Ben Lomond, isn't it?
Ben Nevis, yeah, or Loch Lomond, yeah.
Around Loch Lomond, around there, doing a few summits around there. So it's something that I enjoy. But to go back to your question, Kilimanjaro was not on a bucket list to do. But when the opportunity came up, as I said there, probably I'd say quicker than I maybe should have.
Oh man, no regrets. It's an experience anyway.
Yeah, it was.
And hey, we'll get to talk about that, but I found that really interesting when you're talking about clearing your head. Like, what is it about getting out hiking, be it like the moorings or someone's local hill, or taking on something like Kilimanjaro? Like, can you verbalize what it is that gives you that clarity in your thoughts?
I have friends that go to the moorings and they spend all day. They spend 6 hours to get up to the top of Sleeve Donard, and they spend 4 hours getting down, and they've had the best day's crack, and they stop off for a picnic and they do all that. I'm not one of those people. I use the moorings or use mountains as more of a challenge to myself. So I kind of get into a zone. I am a little bit competitive. So I'm very competitive with myself. But 6 weeks ago, my best time up Sleeve Donard from stepping out of the car to the top of Donard was like 1 hour 9 or something like that.
Nice.
I had to break it. So I set off, started jogging through the forest. And during that jog through the forest, all I have is one focus, and that's to beat my time up to the top. So worrying about being furloughed or worrying about, coronavirus or where it is at the minute and family, just everything seems to, it's still in your mind, but it seems to go right to the back. Before I know it, halfway up, I'm in a good, steady walking pace. I have the head down and I pass a few people on the way by, and I get to the top and it was 1 hour 6. I beat my time by 3 minutes. And anybody who's climbing up mountains, 3 minutes is a bloody long time. So yeah, and I got to the top, and as soon as I got to the top, I made my way back down and I get into the car, and I was completely exhausted, like so tired, physically, mentally tired. I went home and I had the best night's sleep ever. And as I said, it's just like the reset of going to the mountains. Yes, of course, when you're out with a friend, or if I'm out with Mark Robson or Tony Davis, who's the old former S&C coach of Ulster, we go out the odd time. You have good chats. You talk about family. You talk about things that are getting on top of you. Like Kilimanjaro was all about everybody. You find out there's 32 people on that trip. You find out if anybody's kids, family, what dog they have, what their job is, what car they drive, what food they like. You get to really know people. Being on the mountains, being in a really good environment is brilliant for the soul and brilliant for the health. It's something that I've kept up, and I've probably kept it up more so after Kilimanjaro, because I'm definitely better at navigating mountains. I feel like I'm better with poles. I feel like I learned a lot on the trip to Kili, which I've been able to put into practice. And it's small things that really make a difference. And thankfully with you guys, those small things really added up, and that's why all 32 people summited in the end.
Yeah, it was amazing to get everybody up there. Did you go out on many hiking trips as a kid growing up, or did you like going on adventures with your mates?
No, I never went up mountains, really. It was always across fields, jumping on the bike and going for long distance. And there's a tow path close to where I live here, so it's very accessible down there. You can go maybe 7 or 8 miles on that. So as a young kid, maybe 10 years of age, 11 years of age, jump on your bike and go on 11 or 8, 9, 10, 11 miles. It probably feels like you're going 111 miles. It was more football, sport, rugby when I get into school, rather than actually getting out on with mum and dad. They didn't climb or anything. So
you're never too late to come to mountains. So that's absolutely awesome. So
you calling me old?
Oh, I didn't say that now, I was calling you sexy earlier on, so it's all good. You got to balance out the compliments with the slagging as well, So, man, talk to me about our trip. Like, what were your abiding memories from that trip?
Initially, I had no idea what to expect. I chatted to a few people that had been before. Everybody's trip's different. Like, obviously, there's the different routes. There's the weather conditions. The trip that we were on was probably high end compared to a lot of trips that people that no one had went on. Not as many porters, toilet facilities really poor, hygiene quite poor. Something about our trip that I come back singing praises about was how good our tents were, how good the toilet facilities, the food. Yes, the food's not great, but at the same time you're getting cooked a hot meal 2 or 3 times a day, so it was hard to complain. Jumping on the plane, it was just good to get there, I suppose, and then we had a 2-hour. It felt like about 5 hours on the bus, and because there was quite a few of us, it wasn't like we could sprawl out over a couple of seats. We were all packed in like sardines into the mini buses, and all our stuff put on top of it. Obviously, good luck met us at the airport. I done the typical question. Oh, all right, good luck. I'm Stephen. Nice to meet you. Many times have you climbed up Mount Kilimanjaro? And you get asked that every time, but it was me. I was the person. I was like, if I played rugby, people always ask me, so who's your favourite player? What's the best match you've played in? And it's exactly the same thing. But I couldn't help myself. And when he told me over 200 times or something, I can't remember the stat, I was just like, whoa, right, okay. But that's his job, you know. And we got to Arusha. We got there. I was rooming with Mike McCarthy. We got a good feed. Before we knew it, we woke up. We were at the foot of the mountain. The weather wasn't particularly great, and everybody was just sitting looking at each other going, right, this is actually happening. So that's my first memories of getting there. I know the trip from door to door was 10 days. That first day and a half was probably more grueling than the first day and a half in the mountain, just because of the lead up, the travel. You're already busted getting to Africa or Arusha, and you just wanted a bit of your own space and get your head down for a few hours, and the mountain creeps up on you quickly.
Yeah. Come here, you mentioned Good Luck there. I was going to ask you about him because I know you guys formed a really close bond. He was one of our local guides in the trip. Like, what was your impression of our team out there and everyone working on the mountain? Were you impressed with them?
Yeah, I was super impressed. You hear all these stories as well about, you know, porters and, you know, the keep yourself to yourself, and, you know, don't be mentioning certain things. And like, you could sit down and say good luck and have a conversation about anything. He's still working really hard on his English. He didn't know what the hell I was saying, like, because of my Belfast accent.
I was going to say, man, you got to take some responsibility for that one yourself. Like, you play with Good Luck, you know.
But yeah, like, initial impressions, as soon as we walked out of the airport, there's 4 or 5 guys who took our bags. It was maybe 35 degrees when we landed, and these guys are sweating bucketfuls, throwing 25, 35 kg rucksacks on top. You know, all they wanted for us was to feel like we were safe, secure, and well taken care of. And that started from the minute we got off the plane to the minute we got back on the plane to go home. So, Good Luck and the rest of his team, all the guides and porters really looked after as well. And there was probably 500 or 600 quid's worth of gear that I give to Good Luck, just because this guy's walking out of his shoes here. There's a pair of boots for you, 200 odd quid. There's a brand new wet jacket that I'd barely worn. Give him that, give him a few other things. And I think a lot of people on the trip were the same, just because, you know, they're up and down the mountain on a weekly basis, and they probably needed a hell of a lot more than me. So yeah, the guides were absolutely fantastic.
Let's take a break there for some quick fire questions. What was your first job?
Labouring.
What song is always on your workout playlist?
Mario Bacata, Iguana.
What are you reading right now?
I'm not reading anything. I'm listening to a lot of podcasts.
Yeah, people ask me that all the time as well. It always makes you feel thick. You're like,
yeah,
I actually can't read.
I should be reading a book.
Yeah, exactly, man. If you were stranded on a mountain with one celebrity, who would it be?
Bear Grylls.
What is your favorite food to eat on a mountain?
Fruit.
What's your favorite piece of kit?
Poles.
What's your biggest pet peeve when traveling?
I've so many, to be honest with you. My wife not being prepared for traveling, and I'm constantly getting up and down out of the seat to pull things out of the locker above and clean, and get me my headphones and back up again, down again, get me water bottle back up. So yeah, probably the wife not being prepared.
That's hilarious, man. Relationships are the dream at times, huh? If money wasn't a factor, what would you do all day?
Play golf.
And finally, describe yourself in 3 words.
Honest, durable, and sexy.
I was just going to say, you are sexy, man. Yeah, I like it. Or modest, you know. Good man. A great answer. You shared the mountain with Mike McCarthy, Shane Byrne, and Marcus Oren, 3 other rugby legends. How was that, man? Talk to me about the guys. Like,
you know yourself, you find yourself on certain days with like different groups. So you start off walking in the morning. I think the first day, me, Marcus, and Shane, actually, we were all just having a bit of crack on the way up. And then the second day, it was Marcus, myself, and Shane. Mike was way up front with whatever guide was leading the way. And we spent so much time talking about rugby and about family and about work and business and everything. And we were maybe going for, say, 3 hours before we actually took a break. And again, the weather was half decent. We were working up a decent sweat. You know, there are lads that I've known for many years, like I won the Grand Slam with Marcus in 2009, but yet I didn't know him at all, really, compared to getting to know him on the mountain. Probably like going to a bar with 30 people and having one or two drinks for 10 days straight. That's exactly the same feeling as it was in the mountain. The three lads were brilliant, and Mike brought a lot of humour to the trip. We also brought a lot of annoyance. I had to share a tent with him, which was challenging at times, to say the least. But he always brought a smile to your face, and as much as he probably grated on people a bit, just because of he was so repetitive and he was relentless. You know, James, are we nearly there yet? We nearly there yet? He would say something like 5 minutes later, and you just turn around and start laughing or smiling. So like all that crack that he was having and the annoyance that he was being, he always made up for it. Like, so if anybody had been struggling, he'd have been the first guy to drop back and help them up, or sit down for 15 or 20 minutes. He's that type of bloke. So I think a lot of the people on the trip we can now call friends, which is amazing.
Yeah, I think you touched on it there. It's really fantastic, just being not on your phone and having proper chats and connecting with people. It just happens so organically on a big trip like that. So yeah, it was good. I was funny earlier on, you were mentioning how great our tents are. I was sure you were going to give me some grief about putting the two biggest guys in the trip in the one tent,
Yeah, well, I think I gave you a lot of grief after the trip on the way home. Yeah, well, like, as I said there, Mike was annoying at times, but when you wake up in the morning and he brought a smile to your face by saying something funny, or, was having to crack, like, we had a lot of laughs in the tent, let's just say that.
Still watching him, one of the mornings on the mountain, he got up and started breakdancing for everybody. And I'm like, God, this guy's like 115, 120 kg. If he hurts his back, how am I going to get him off this mountain? But, if I'd have said to him, Mike, stop doing that, he would have done it like 10 times worse. Yeah. So you're just like, he's so funny. You were widely regarded as one of the toughest guys ever to play for Ireland, a real hard man of rugby. If anyone hasn't seen your highlights reel on YouTube, that will confirm the same thing, picking up Will Genia and the likes. Yet you found Kilimanjaro extremely tough. You described it as the hardest thing you've ever done. Like, were you surprised with how tough it was?
I was. On reflection, the 10 days more or less just caught up on you on summit night. Getting up at 12, I hadn't really slept that well. Conditions were quite tough at just above, was it Kosovo camp we were at?
Yeah.
The conditions were tough. It was extremely cold. There was a wee bit of snow and that. So when we started the climb, I was full of beans, full of energy. And then probably, like, I had it in my head again, the mental challenge of it. We only had, 800 or 900 meters to go, 1,000 meters maybe. Like, I had it in my head, Sleeve to Honored is 894 meters high. So I can easily do that. Like, it's no problem. But it's not easily done at 5,000 meters of altitude. Yeah. And you haven't particularly eaten that much. You haven't slept that well, obviously. I have a dodgy left knee, but it was actually my right knee. I think I tweaked my patella tendon in my right knee. Would you believe it? Like, the crappiest, most horrendous bandage actually helped it a lot. So I think that was Fiona that put that on and helped me. And I was grueling through. It was maybe about 2 hours. I was really struggling with my knee, but I had my headphones in, being a little bit selfish and just trying to get in the zone and just keep it going, listening to some dance music or whatever, just grind it out. My knee was excruciating. I was like, what am I going to do here? Like, what am I going to do? I'm definitely not backing out. Like, I'll go up on one leg. And there are parts, it's very like back and forth, windy. It's not like you're just going up a steep slope the whole way. And then when we got to the summit, it was obviously extremely cold. I don't know what the temperature was, James, minus 15, 20, would it have been?
Yeah, about that, man. It was freezing up there, yeah.
Yeah. And just when we were kind of getting up past Stella Point, the sort of sun came up, and I whipped out my phone straight away and took a couple of pictures, because there was this mist and haze that just hung around, and there was a little bit of like blizzardy snow that came and went the odd time. And I took a couple of pictures because it was the only time that we actually witnessed the sunshine for about 3 days. And then I was actually chatting to one of the lads that we actually climbed with, and I would climb Kilimanjaro again just to get sunshine views. did I have this sense of like, wow, this is just like everything that I've dreamt of when I got to the top? You know what? I probably would climb it again, like just to try and get those views.
Amazing, man. I guess, yeah. When you're asked, like I could have asked you when we got back down to Arusha, I'll pay you like €1 million to go back up, or even £1 million, man. You would have been like, no, thank you. But now,
Well, now the COVID's hit, like I might have taken you up on that.
Like there was 32 of us. Were you impressed with some of the other people who summited it? Some of them were nearly twice your age.
Yeah, well, I think everybody that was on that trip, when the going got tough, everybody seemed to dig their heels in. Probably Graham, he'll hate me for saying this, he got a couple of porters or a couple of guides to help him down the last stage back to Kosovo camp. It wasn't because he couldn't do it. He was just absolutely exhausted. He was just knackered. If the lads hadn't been there, he would have made it down, but it would have taken him maybe 3 or 4 times as longer. But that was obviously a laughing point for everybody else. Give him a bit of slag and take the piss out of him.
That's why you're on here, man, to take the piss out of your mates, Graham, actually, I was with him on the way up, man. I would say he was just didn't have a good day, and he was a little slower than the rest of you guys. But
yeah,
we still hit Stella Point in 5 hours, which is really fast. I've seen people take 8-9 hours to get to that point, so that would be an extreme case. But yeah, he was still relatively strong. But I find it so inspiring to see people do this, with little or no experience. I think it's incredible, So,
well, anybody who's doing Kilimanjaro or thinking of doing Kilimanjaro, I was expecting to have to go for rope lessons and how to put crampons on, and you're gonna have to dig in and snow climbs and all this, and that's completely not the case. It was actually really enjoyable and it was a bit of fun, and again, it wasn't dangerous in the slightest. It's like anything, any line of work. If you've got the right tools, it makes it a hell of a lot easier. So that's one thing that I found really important, was everything that I had was top drawer, and it made things a little easier for me getting up.
Yeah, I was going to actually ask you that. What would your top tips be for someone who's in between somewhere the couch and a 5K and maybe hitting the gym twice a week? I think people get the impression about Kilimanjaro that it's super hard. You mentioned ropes there, and it's really not the case. What advice would you give to someone like that who's thinking of doing it?
Do you just want to climb Kilimanjaro to run around and tell everybody that you've climbed Kilimanjaro? It is one of the tallest peaks in the world. It's a real challenge, but no problem. I think it was the training for it, James. So it wasn't just I rolled out of bed one day, jumped on a flight to Arusha, and then climbed Kilimanjaro. I spent a lot of time in the mornings. I got myself into really good shape. If I hadn't have done that, would I have made it to the top? I probably would, but who knows? But I made sure that I didn't leave any stone unturned, and I was physically in good condition. Well, as good as I can be with all my bloody rugby injuries. And it gave me something to train towards. So people, the sofa to 5K, they just don't jump off the sofa and do 5K. They jump off the sofa, they go out and they do 1K at a really slow pace, and then 2 days, 3 days later, they do 1.5K at a slightly higher pace, and then they go back again. So it's just about getting to that final end point. Kilimanjaro, number one, it was the experience of being with a group of people and summiting a mountain, and that feeling of accomplishment as a group. And that's been something I've been really used to over the years playing rugby, is that rugby is not an individual sport, it's a team sport. And we were certainly a team, and I think it showed with the 32 people getting to the top. So anybody out there who's thinking of doing it, if you like a team environment, 100% get involved. If you're somebody who is a bit of a recluse, who likes to go and do things on their own, it's probably not for you. Yeah, it's a real team thing, and again, as I alluded to earlier there, I made a hell of a lot of friends out of it as well.
Yeah, I think there is no one thing. I think you got to look at equipment and training, but I think that's what you see so much emotion on the top, man, because people go through a journey in the year or 6 months leading up to this thing, and it's just it all kind of captivates when they get to the top. And anyway, I was going to ask you, how's the body holding up, man? You were I saw you on Instagram lifting some big weight there. What's the state of play since I last saw you like?
Yeah, well, that's all well and good, been able to squat 100 kgs, but believe it or not, I've only played a couple of rounds of golf this last 6 months. I had to get steroid injections in my wrists. So yeah, if it's not one thing, it's something else. But yeah, hopefully that'll help. I'll try and get back in the golf course a bit more. In terms of my legs or lower limbs, my ankle gives me a bit of jip now and again. Both knees are temperamental, to say the least. I would have very limited range in my right ankle. I'm obviously in the joint, so if you're on an incline, you're always closing the front of the joint up a hell of a lot. So I wore a heel raise in my boots for on my right leg the whole way up, which certainly helped things.
I was really impressed to hear you're out in the moorings a lot more, man. And to be honest with you, amazed to hear that you consider going back to Kili again. Do you feel like you've caught the bug for mountains? Is this something that you want to keep doing?
Yeah, it was always in there. I just don't think climbing Mount Kilimanjaro has given me this love for the mountains. So again, it's about setting myself goals. So the 7 summits in the moorings. Before I went to Kilimanjaro, I'd only climbed 2 of the 7, Donard and Binion. So I made that a goal, which I just completed there with Robbo, and we got a miserable day for it. We got to the top of Comida. It was completely fogged over. The way we went up from the other side, and we go up, and you get to like a big turret, and the turret actually isn't the top. And that's one of the reasons why I like going out with Mark, is because he's able to pull out a compass. He's able to navigate very, very well. He's a couple of friends in mountain rescue who he's trained with a bit over the years. So we were able to get the compass out. There's maybe only 10 meters of visibility, get ourselves on a starting point, and then we walked to the summit, and he presented me with a wee tiny cup. In fairness, it's the only silverware I've won in about 12 years.
Did he put some whiskey in it for you, did he?
No, he didn't. He's a bit of a tight arse, so again, that was just a challenge.
And tell me, any aspirations to climb something bigger than Kilimanjaro?
Not in the immediate future, no.
Yeah.
I don't think climbing higher and higher and higher is something that is appealing to me. I would go and climb other mountains that are half the height of Kilimanjaro, but maybe it's a 6 or 7 day experience, but the scenery is amazing. The wildlife's amazing. Everest Base Camp would be pretty cool to say you've done it. And I think the way of life there as well in Nepal is obviously a lot different than it is in Africa. So just to experience a different culture and the way things operate on the mountain there. But Everest Base Camp would maybe be a possibility, but apart from that, I'm quite happy with 5,895 meters.
Hey, yeah, I think that's great, man, because I think often people just want to push it harder and harder all the time, and sometimes it's important to check back in with yourself and make sure you're doing what you like. So there's some amazing treks out there, and it would be great to have you on Everest Base Camp sometime. Maybe we could do something else in the future.
Anybody who's thinking of getting out in the mountains, just go and do it. Get yourself a good footwear. Go and do it. Grab a couple of people, and you will have an absolute ball. And anybody who's thinking of going on any big trips to Kili or Everest or further afield, give it a lot of thought. Get a good training schedule in place. You'll have an absolute blast. So, yeah, that's all from me, really.
Listen, man, thanks so much. Really appreciate you coming on, and have a super day, all right?
Thanks, man. Appreciate that.
Bye-bye.
Look after yourself. Cheers.
This podcast was produced by Earth's Edge. We're a small business based in Ireland who organise big adventures all over the world. For more information about us and the trips discussed on this podcast, visit earths-edge.com or follow us on Instagram. Don't forget to sign up to our mailing list to be in the running to win one of our summit jackets. There's a link in the show notes. And while you're there, if you could subscribe and review the podcast, that'd be brilliant. I'm your host, James McManus. Thanks for listening and have a super week.